France are the Seine, Loire, Garonne, and the Rhone. Mountains circle much of France, the Ardennes in the north, the Alps in the east, and the Pyrenees along the Spanish border. France is a beautiful country of majestic mountains, verdant valleys, sparkling streams, and fertile fields and farmland. France is a great agricultural nation. Its rich soil yields a variety of crops, such as apples, pears, and grapes. The wines from these vineyards are France's best-known export. Much of the farming is mixed with large beef and dairy herds. There is an unchanging quality in rural France, but the rustic ways of France's agricultural yesterday are being combined with the modern methods and machinery of today. The small-scale farming of yesterday is giving way to the large-scale farming of today. About 1/4 of France's labor force works on the land, but it receives only 1/10 of the national income. These sacks of wheat are made into long loaves of French bread. The markets, or les halles as they are called, though popular, are poorly organized and badly in need of modernization. There are too many middlemen between the farmer and the consumer, and there are far too many small and unprofitable shops and stalls. But the produce is high quality, fresh, and very inviting. The French, with a fine feeling for beauty, love their flowers and take home a bunch whenever they can. Wherever they live, in the cities, in the more elegant apartments with their artistic grillwork, or in smaller towns, living over garages and stores, facing on narrow, congested streets. Whether they live in villages nestled in the mountains or hidden among the hills, or in large old farmhouses, or in rustic cottages, they live with beauty and faith. Faith that has produced a serene simplicity of life, and faith that has created some of the most magnificent monuments in the world. The stately Cathedral of Chartres is only one of many. Its stained glass windows are a wonder of art. The cathedral at Rennes. France is predominantly Catholic, although there is no recognized state religion. These fine churches rightly reflect the greatness of France's religious yesterday. Today, a great part of the French people are indifferent to religion, some even hostile. But the cathedral at Lourve is the rallying point for strong religious devotion. Hundreds of thousands of sick and crippled are brought each year to the famed shrine of Bernadette to drink and bathe in the waters of the grotto. Education in France is compulsory between the ages of 6 and 11. Some schools are for girls, others are for boys. Many are co-educational, like this one, and are known throughout the world for their high standard of education. One thing is sure: French education is strict and difficult. Agricultural schools attempt to merge the old and the new, and schools for commercial studies provide specialized training. The University of Paris, usually called the Sorbonne, is one of the most famous universities in the world. Inscribed over the entrance of the School of Law are 3 great words: liberté, égalité, fraternité. And many other French words are familiar to us, too. Telegraph, poste, téléphone, porcelaine, pharmacie, coiffure, station, service. France is an ancient country. The history of Europe cannot really be told apart from France. There are many traces of the Romans, who were the first to completely colonize the country. Besides bringing their culture to France, the Romans also introduced Christianity. The medieval period is preserved in this 14th century palace of the popes and in the walled cities of southern France. Another colorful page of history was written in the city of Orleans by the Loire River. In its main square stands the statue of Joan of Arc, sometimes called the Maid of Orleans. But she is honored in many towns and cities throughout the country. A former marketplace in Rouen marks the spot where she was burned at the stake after being captured by the English. All along the Loire River stand the stately chateaux or mansions of the nobility during France's glorious period. The Palace of Versailles recaptures the romance and color of this glorious period. This gigantic palace was built by Louis XIV, the Sun King, so that he could entertain a large proportion of the nobility at one time. He dedicated it to all the glories of France. The Palace of Fontainebleau is equally famous. Many of France's leading lights were frequent guests in the luxurious apartments of this gorgeous palace. Napoleon's room, the council room. This indeed was the life. But all luxury and voluptuous. This cradle of French, the square is now called Place of Concord. The name was changed to help heal the wounds of the Revolution. The Hotel of the Invalids, a military museum, is a memorial to Napoleon and contains his huge stone coffin and the tomb of Marshal Foch. The Hotel de Ville is the city hall of Paris. It has endured through most of the periods of France's great historical yesterdays to witness the development of today's strong national leadership. At the Arch of Triumph, which shelters the tomb of the unknown soldier, France honors its heroes of the past. And in some of France's bloody yesterdays, America has played a vital part. France and America have fought and bled together for freedom. This is the tie that binds us. The story of French industry begins here. Water from these rushing mountain streams is channeled through huge pipes or conduits to power the giant turbines of the hydroelectric plants below. These plants generate electric power, which is fed to relay stations and then throughout the nation. Electricity and natural gas are sources of power for commerce and the heavy industry, which is so important to the French economy. Since nationalizing and modernizing its coal industry, France has become the world's fifth largest producer. Steel production is at an all-time high and places France as the world's number 3 producer. Modern methods have cut the production costs and brought a taste of prosperity to the workers of France. And many other heavy industries are helping to strengthen France economically. But with the progress came smog. The Renault automobile company is France's largest single industrial enterprise. So great has been the growth in the auto industry that there is now a car for every 7 French people. France is also famous for its light industry. In many small factories scattered throughout the country, the French patiently and proudly produce an exciting assortment of carefully crafted products. Wonderfully fragrant, world-famous perfumes. Rich porcelain. Fragile china. And exquisite jewelry. On many avenues in Paris, there are elegant shops of fashion with famous names, like Hermes, Lauvin, and others. Textiles and high fashion are a multi-million-dollar business in France. The famous flea market of Paris offers a striking contrast and is really a strange blend of the France of yesterday and today. The women of Brittany, dressed in native costume, display another distinctive product of home industry, delicate lace. The story of French transportation is a great success story. It begins with these excellently engineered hairpin roads in the Alps. It continues with the beautifully built, broad boulevards of the large cities, which handle a steady flow of traffic. Traffic that is carefully controlled by the world-famous French police. Despite their efficiency and the excellent roads, France has the highest per-car death rate in the world. But perhaps the railroad station is the symbol of France's greatest transportation success, its excellent, efficient electric train system. French railways are now the world's greatest pioneers in electrification. Its trains are among the best and fastest in the world, and undoubtedly are some of the longest, too. Another modern mode of transportation is the metro, a well-developed network of elevated trains and subways which serve the metropolitan area. The French take great pride in this form of rapid transit and its carefully maintained schedules. Bus service is easy and economical, and the buses are modern. Waterways, like the Seine, which flows through the heart of Paris, are the sinews or veins of French economic health. Barges carry a heavy flow of freight and passengers to the great port cities, such as Marseilles, which is the crossroads of shipping and traffic from all parts of the world. It is the second largest city in France. The many other large port cities place France at the center of world commerce. These great port cities are Marseilles and Nice in the south, Bordeaux in the west, and Le Havre in the north. The Paris basin is the nerve center of French industry. France also has many fishing fleets, such as this one at Normandy, which have helped to make it a major fishing nation. The story of French transportation ends with the modern miracle of air travel. Paris Airport is one of the biggest and busiest airports in the world, serving all the main commercial carriers. From here, planes take off for all corners of the earth. The new radio and television center on President Kennedy Avenue is a tribute to French communications, which is government-controlled. But in spite of the surge of modern progress, the French have retained their ancient ability to enjoy life and leisure. The French Riviera is where their pursuit of pleasure reaches its highest. The boardwalks and beaches along the Mediterranean, coupled with the great natural beauty, attract tourists from all over the world. Yachting and fishing are popular diversions here and throughout the nation. The French love their great outdoors. Perhaps that's one reason why they love to cycle. Wherever you go in France, you will see cyclists, younger women and housewives, and even older women. People cycle down the dark, winding back alleys, in the crowded, narrow streets of the small towns. They cycle to work in the main streets and in the thick of busy city traffic. Many superhighways converge on Paris, the jewel in France's crown. This city, unlike the other major Western capitals, is the center of almost all its country's culture. And it is the great magnet that draws tourists from around the world to savor the French way of life. Outdoor cafes and fabulous restaurants are a special French tradition. Cafes are for business, for excitement, or just for relaxing. French cuisine is a flourishing fine art. Tourists on the Seine enjoy the sweetness of life, as the French put it. Formal gardens grace the landscape and attract the lovers of beauty, and the French love their many beautiful parks. The French bring a simple and delightful charm to the art of leisure living. Some forms of recreation are enjoyed by the entire family. Others are for men only, like bocce ball. The Louvre, most famous of all art museums, is really 6 museums in one. It contains what is probably the greatest collection of paintings and works of art ever assembled. The French have an intense appreciation for the performing arts, their opera, and the theater, like this one, named after a famous actress. Today, the theater enjoys a prestige as great as it had in the 17th century. The left bank of Paris has traditionally been the place for poets to congregate. And the Montmatre, with its narrow streets, is the haven of artists who come to paint the district's charms. The Pantheon in Paris is a memorial commemorating many famous Frenchmen. On a wall near the Pantheon are inscribed the names of many of these great men. France lives with the memories of the great men of her grand and glorious yesterdays. Some are buried in this cemetery. The composer Bizet, Chopin, the pianist composer, and Balzac, the popular novelist. And France today pays tribute to the great of yesterday. Victor Hugo, author and politician. Émile Zola, one of the best-known realistic novelists. And Voltaire, who gave the world a heritage of brilliant books. France has made notable contributions to world knowledge in many fields. In literature, with Alexandre Dumas, one of the greatest French writers, and Corneille, the playwright. In science, with Louis Pasteur, whose discoveries in chemistry and biology have saved millions of lives. In philosophy, with Lamarck, the founder of the doctrine of evolution. And politically, France has